Every Dividend Snowball video on YouTube starts the chart at year 1. Clean spreadsheet, beautiful curve, going up and to the right. Nobody asking what was paid for that first share. That missing number is the whole story. Stick around. The math of reinvested dividends is real. It works. I am not here to argue against compounding. But there is one variable that every Snowball video quietly skips, and it decides whether your 40-year plan actually takes 40 years. That variable is the price you paid on day 1. Today we run Graham's Intrinsic Value formula on Coca-Cola live, so you can check that number before you buy instead of after. Here's how dividend reinvestment actually works. With no hype attached. You own shares. The company pays a dividend. Instead of taking that cash out, you use it to buy more shares. Those additional shares generate their own dividends next quarter, which buys more shares, which generates more dividends. That is the whole mechanism. Nothing complicated, nothing magic. The reason it becomes powerful is purely geometric. In year 1, the effect is small. You reinvest a few dollars and pick up a fraction of a share. In year 10, you own meaningfully more shares than you started with. So each payment is larger in dollar terms. Which buys more shares? Which accelerates the next round? The curve is not a straight line. It bends upward. That bend is what people are pointing at when they show you those charts. Give the strategy full credit. For a company that has raised its dividend consistently for decades, that effect is genuinely significant over long horizons. A patient investor who bought a solid dividend grower at a reasonable price and then did nothing for 30 years built something real. That is not a myth. The mechanism is sound. The problem is not the mechanism. The problem is the assumption baked into every chart you have ever seen. Same stock, same dividend growth, same reinvestment. 2 investors. One buys at a fair price. The other buys the identical stock at 30% above that fair price. The second investor starts with fewer shares for the same money. Fewer shares means a smaller first dividend. A smaller dividend means fewer shares reinvested each quarter. That gap does not stay put. It compounds in reverse. Here is the part nobody visualizes. 30% overpaid buys you 23% fewer shares on day 1. By year 40, you own 48% fewer. The gap roughly doubles because every share you did not buy is a share that never bought shares of its own. Put it in years instead of percentages. Chasing $10,000 a year in dividend income, the fair value buyer gets there in year 35. The one who overpaid by 30% gets there in year 42. 7 years. That is the hidden cost. Not a dollar figure. 7 years of your life spent buying nothing. So how do you find a fair entry price? There is a formula for that. Benjamin Graham published this in The Intelligent Investor. It is arithmetic. 4 inputs. No black box. Let me walk each one. EPS, earnings per share, over the trailing 12 months. Reported history, not a projection. You find it on any financial data site, or better, in the filing. 8.5. Graham's baseline price-to-earnings ratio for a company with zero growth. A business that is standing still and printing the same earnings every year is worth roughly 8.5 times those earnings in his framework. That number never moves. 2G. The letter G is expected annual earnings growth as a whole number, not a decimal. If a company is expected to grow earnings at 5% a year, G equals 5. The formula doubles it. This is where your judgment enters. Analyst estimates exist. So does your skepticism about them. use a conservative number, 4.4. Graham's baseline for the yield on high-quality corporate bonds in his era, also fixed. Why? The yield on high-quality corporate bonds today. This one moves. Look it up fresh every single time. The ratio of 4.4 divided by today's Y is what adjusts the whole formula for the interest rate environment you are actually investing in. When rates are high, intrinsic values come down. When rates are low, they float up. That relationship is deliberate. Multiply EPS by the quantity 8.5 plus 2G. Multiply that by 4.4. Divide by Y. What comes out is Graham's estimate of what the stock is worth per share. Given those inputs, one note before we run it. This is educational. I spent 4 years in the Navy, not a finance career, and I am not your financial advisor. This is a starting point for your own analysis, not a buy signal. Let us run it on Coca-Cola. Earnings per share, trailing 12 months. Through the second quarter of 2026, Coke earned $3.33 per share. That comes out of the company's own filing. I want to flag something here because it nearly caught me. A lot of sources will hand you $2.45 for this. That is Coke's 2024 number. 2 years stale. It is still floating around because nobody updates anything. And if you use it, you will value this company about 25% too low and feel very clever about it. Check the filing. 8.5 goes in unchanged. Growth rate, Coca-Cola is a mature business. It is not growing at 15% a year, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling something. I am using 5%, which is deliberately conservative. Hold that thought. We are coming back to it. 4.4 is fixed. Current high-grade corporate bond yield. Moody's seasoned AAA, as of July, sat at 5.76%. That is the most time-sensitive input in the formula. Look it up the day you run this, not the day you watch this. Now we calculate. 8.5 plus 10 is 18.5. $3.33 times 18.5 is $61.61. Times 4.4 is $271.06. Divided by 5.76 gives us $47.06. Graham's formula with these inputs values Coca-Cola at roughly $47 a share. Coca-Cola closed at $86.78. That is not a small gap. That is 84% above the estimate. $39.72 of premium on every single share. Now, before somebody types it in the comments. Yes, I picked a conservative growth rate. So let us not be conservative. Run it at 7%, which is what the company itself guides to for this year. And you get $57.23. Run it at 10%, which nobody serious believes for a 140-year-old soda company. And you get $72.50. The market is still asking more. You have to leave the formula entirely to justify the price. Now add margin of safety. This is a separate step. Do not fold it into the formula. Margin of safety means you do not buy at intrinsic value. You buy below it because your inputs are estimates, and estimates are wrong sometimes. Graham advocated a meaningful cushion. 25% is a reasonable starting point. Take $47.06, multiply by 0.75, and your buy zone is about $35.30. Intrinsic value is your ceiling, not your target. The cushion is not pessimism. It is arithmetic humility. In 1972, Berkshire Hathaway bought See's Candies for $25 million. Modest sales, modest profit. And it went on to become one of the best purchases Buffett ever made. He has said he almost walked away because the seller wanted slightly more than his number. That last sentence is the thing. He did not just want the cash flow. To me, he wanted the cash flow at a specific price. Those are two completely different decisions. Anyone can find a business that generates cash. The discipline is refusing to pay more than it is worth, even when you like it, even when everyone else is bidding it up. He was willing to lose the deal of his life over a rounding error, and that is precisely why it became the deal of his life. The dividend snowball is the cash flow. The entry price audit is the discipline. You need both. One without the other is either a great business bought badly or a cheap stock that earns you nothing. Neither one is a plan. So before you build the snowball, check what you paid for the first handful of snow. Next video, we get into why dividend yield on its own is one of the laziest metrics in investing and what to look at instead.